Good morning, good afternoon, or whenever you're listening to this. Friday, May the 2nd, 11:51 in the a.m. Mike Giardi, Will Parkinson alongside. As always, you are listening to the All 32 podcast, part of and a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. Show brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off when you play $5. Prizepicks, run your game. Also, Gametime, best tickets, best prices anywhere, anytime. We figured as we start to embark on maybe a little bit of a slower period. We've got about a 2.5 month build up until training camp. We'd empty the notebook today from the past week or so, and then maybe some power rankings next week. And then, of course, start to break down these teams one by one as we gear up for the start of a new football season, Will. So I'm excited for that. I did want to start, though, with what happened in my backyard yesterday, Thursday. Drake Maye speaking for the first time to the local media since the end of the season. And if you remember correctly, he played one series in that finale against Buffalo, and then did not talk to the media afterwards, which I sort of understood. But the next day, locker clean out day, he disappeared, did not talk to the media. So a bit of a rookie mistake there, but we got to talk to him. And what I wanted to focus on, Will, is the marriage between Drake Maye and Josh McDaniels. And I think what we heard yesterday, as I texted Josh McDaniels to reveal something. Boy, it sure sounded a lot like you speaking through Drake Maye. Drake talking, he said his stuff works of McDaniel, kind of proofs in the pudding. He's coached a lot of different guys. He's coached the best to ever do it. It's pretty cool getting to watch old things, Tom, as in Tom Brady, and see how he does it. And, a bunch of different guys played at a high level in that offense, not just Tom. So it's been cool to watch and learn the ways and learn the ins and outs. I guess when you look at this relationship, and we know Josh, Will, has not been a successful head coach, but as a coordinator has done a damn good job. They were, I think, 6th overall in scoring in his last year in New England with Mac Jones and that collection. What do you make of the relationship, and what do you think the ceiling is for that duo together?
Yeah, so I think there's a pretty high ceiling for their relationship. I think more so the floor is a lot higher. I think, if you look back at Drake Maye's rookie season, I felt like a lot of fun plays, a lot of effort balls at times, though, and a lot of, it's not like again, I don't put as much stock in his stats because of the supporting cast, the coaching staff, all that stuff. I get it. But it's not like, we ripped Caleb and Caleb didn't turn the football over at all. He just didn't, there was no explosives. He was a pretty boring, inaccurate quarterback. Yep. I feel like Drake Maye was a lot of splash. I think Josh will be able to raise the floor where there's not the splash will be there for sure, whether it's in the run game, or the pass game. But I think being able to shore up, create easy opportunities for him, be able to create a lot of that screen game, a lot of these one-on-one choice routes with some of the slot guys, and can you get digs one-on-one, things like that. So I think the relationship should go well. I think what you want to see is Drake kind of find his voice and be able to not challenge Josh, but I think Josh does a really good job as a quarterback as a coordinator, when someone is able to go back at him and really give as much as they get. Maybe you don't want to give quite as much as you get, but you get my point of I don't, where he's not had as much success as the guys that are just robots that don't give any input into the offense. They're just, you look at Jimmy and, in Vegas and Minch, and these guys are just they're like, you can hear the robot sounds clicking in the huddle. I want to see Drake obviously have some personality in that huddle. And I also want to see him with Josh McDaniels take those core concepts and be able to be like, hey, Josh, it's your offense, but I love these 5 plays. These are my, and I want to build off it. I want to get to 10 plays that I love and I can go to on 3rd and short, 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, where I trust myself, I trust this offense, et cetera. So should be a good relationship. One other comment, I thought everyone made a big deal out of this, and I know it's whatever. I will say it didn't exactly cool the Drake Maye, didn't love Joe Milton situation.
Yeah.
I don't make a big deal out of it, but it was Drake's a smart kid. I don't think he said backup unintentionally. I think it's the truth. Joe Milton's going to be a backup. I don't think there's anything like that, but it was just interesting instead of just being go and get a chance to play in Dallas, the backup thing, because let's face it, he wasn't a backup last year. He was a 3rd stringer. So I just thought that was interesting, but the Maye-McDaniels relationship should go well. I'm more fascinated the Stephon Diggs relationship, the Pop Douglas, the Jalen Polks of the world. Like those are the guys that either were very vocal last year or have been very vocal in the past about their discontent with the way their targets and stuff come about. And Josh has gone to battle with the Randy, Ochos and the, dating back way back. But more importantly, I guess in earlier times, him and Devontae Adams did not get along. I mean, it was bad. And I wonder if Josh has taken 10% at this point in his career and had the year off and said, okay, how can I work a little bit on communication with some of these star guys? Because people will yell at me all they want. Stephon Diggs is going to come back, and he's a type of person in a good way that's going to be like, I'm a number one in this league. I want 180 targets because that's what I've earned. And I hope Josh is able to say, hey, we're going to ease you back in and be able to massage that. Last year, I thought Slowick did a terrible job. But I will say he kept Stephon Diggs happy without letting him ruin things. That's what I would look for from Josh and Drake as kind of as a whole.
Yeah, I think I think Drake already told us that Josh is listening to him, that they've already discussed what you said, the core concepts. And hey, these are things that we did last year. I know it wasn't your offense, it was Alex Van Pelt's offense, but we did last year that we had success with that I really liked. Can we work that into what we're doing? And from the way he spoke about it and from knowing Josh like I do, yeah, I think that's absolutely, yeah. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to have as much investment in the plays that we're putting down as I have in the ones who's creating them. So I think you're going to see that relationship. I also liked his conversation about leadership. Last year he had to sort of bide his time behind Brissett, and I think maybe some people were a little disappointed in training camp that he didn't push more vocally, that he was content to or felt like, hey, it's going to be my team, but right now it's Jacoby's team, and I don't want to step on Jacoby's toes.
Who's the leader on this offense right now?
It has to be him.
Drake?
It has to be
right?
him.
That's my point. It's like David Andrews isn't in that room anymore to be like, guys, let's go. And Nwanu's not going to do that.
No, that's not Mike's personality. That's not Ramondre's personality. That's not Antonio Gibson's personality. I would say Diggs will certainly vault himself.
Diggs was in a talk. It's a matter of who's the guy that everyone's turning to.
Well, and the interesting thing about Diggs is that if you talk to the young receivers when he was in Buffalo during his that great run there for 3 seasons, those guys loved him. It was rubbing the coordinators, rubbing Sean, rubbing Brandon Beane, rubbing Josh Allen the wrong way at times that led to what eventually ended up as the divide there that caused them to trade Diggs for a 2nd-round pick to Houston. So I did like what I heard from Drake. Again, it's all talk at this point. We have to see it on the field, but it does feel like this has the chance to be a really good relationship between the two. And one more thing I'll add, because it was a debate when the Patriots were talking to different offensive coordinators, or that whole process was going on, and like, well, Josh, he only knows how to play one way. It's just not true. And again, you're going to look at his head coaching experience, and that's a massive ding against him. But as a coordinator, as I said, the 6th highest scoring offense in football with Mac Jones, who doesn't have nearly the physical talent that Drake May has. He cobbled together an offense in 2020, the COVID year, with Cam Newton. Cam couldn't throw. I mean, he could not throw. So you're talking about a guy who coached Tom Brady and created this offense, and he created an offense with Damiere Byrd as his number 1 outside receiver and Ryan Izzo as his number 1 tight end. Just think about that for a second. Those 2 guys, not good football players. And Newton was stopped in 4th and 1 in Seattle early in the year. Newton fumbled the ball inside the 20-yard line at Buffalo as they're going in for the game-winning score. So they weren't a good team, but it could have easily flipped to 9-7, and maybe that even I didn't look. Maybe that got him in the playoffs. Like, he did a nice job with a guy who has, he had no discernible traits left other than that he was a runner. And then obviously, between getting Jimmy ready to play when Brady was suspended, even the one game where Jacoby Brissett had to step in as a rookie and he looked competent, created a different offense for him as well. Like, he's able to adjust. Even in Vegas, he doesn't like to throw the ball down the field. In Vegas, he had his quarterbacks, he had Carr and Jimmy for the 4 games, push the ball down the field. Like, so he's adaptable, and he will be adaptable with this group going forward, I don't think there's any question in my mind about that. With this group going forward, I don't think there's any question in my mind about that. Hey, just a reminder for those of you listening to the show, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know when the next video drops. All right, let's go from that. And actually, we were talking about a piece that's going to be mentioned in this next story. Brandon Beane, who went on WGR, sports radio station in Buffalo, which I appear on from time to time. Love those guys. They're fantastic, fun. They love their sports up there, no question. And he immediately got on the defensive because right before he got on, they were conversing about wide receivers. And the host, Jeremy White, said they don't invest in the position of wide receiver like a lot of their counterparts do. Speaking about Kansas City or obviously Cincinnati. And so Beane came in hot. He's like, what are we doing? And then he said, well, you guys were bitching in 2018 about Josh Allen. You guys all wanted Josh Rosen. You got that one right? Now you guys are bitching that we don't have a receiver. We just scored 30 points in a row for 8 straight games. A year ago, I got you asking why we didn't have receivers, but I don't understand it now. You just saw us lead the league in points. When you add in the postseason, no one scored more points than the Buffalo Bills, including the Super Bowl champions. And so you just saw us do it without Stephon Diggs, the same group. How is this group not better than last year's group? Will, your take on Brandon Beane firing back at the critics who said, defense heavy draft. Where's the playmaker for Josh?
So I saw a tweet from friend of the pod, Billy M _91. Yes. He's on Twitter. He's a really good follower. He's film out in like 13 seconds after the play happens. They have the 6th lowest investment in receiver in the draft in terms of draft capital since 2020. So technically they're not wrong. I think both people are wrong. In a sense, Brand's going to defend himself because he should, and I get it. They've invested quite a bit in this defense. They've paid defensive guys. They've drafted defense high. They've drafted defense low. They've drafted, wherever it is. Like, and I get it. I saw this, take about how, and I agree with it. When you have a superstar quarterback, and New England did this, and they can fix your offensive problems. The quarterback can't fix your defensive problems, so invest in the defense. And the offense, Josh can help. We saw it last year. Josh can fix a lot of the woes on the offense. He can't help you play corner.
Right. Can't get you off the field on third down.
Yeah. So, Cincinnati, it's like they really should be investing a ton in their defense. Notice how when their defense was good, they went to the Super Bowl. Their defense is bad. That doesn't happen, right? Or Buffalo, they don't get to the Super Bowl ever, obviously. But when they were, when they get that far, whatever. Kansas City, same thing. They invested in their defense. Mahomes covers up enough cracks in the offense. I guess my question would be like, what did they want the Bills to do? Are they going to, because who was left on the board, right? Luther Burden, who you probably want to play in the slot when you just paid Khalil Shakir. Don't love it. You're going to draft Jaden Higgins, who I think is a much more athletic, but similar player in a lot of ways. Not total clone, but they just drafted Keon Coleman a year ago. Right. So the guy you really were looking for is the Emeka Egbuka of the draft, and he wasn't available anymore, right? So I guess my question is, what were you necessarily hoping for there? They've got multiple investments at tight end. They've got multiple investments at receiver. They've tried. They just haven't gotten it right, frankly. Like they traded for Amari Cooper last year. I said it at the time, and I will say it again. It never made sense. Amari Cooper disappears when the weather gets cold. It's happened his entire career. I don't know what happens. Week 10 hits, and it's like, ooh, there goes Amari. Soft tissue injury.
My hamstring hurts.
Hamstring hurts. The hamstring starts barking instantly. It's crazy how that works. But yeah, I don't know. I don't blame Brandon for getting pissed about it. Again, but at the same time, statistically, like, they're not wrong. They don't really invest in receivers much in the draft, and especially not with strong capital. Keon Coleman even was a second rounder, right? So yeah, I don't know. I kind of I'm standing on the fence, I guess, because I think both people are right. I think the Bills need another weapon, but I also don't think I also think they can get away with what they have because they have a superhuman at quarterback and Shakir, and hopefully Coleman takes a jump and Kincaid finally hits his stride, and you get what you get out of Elijah Moore. By the way, I've really enjoyed everyone taking a victory lap on Elijah Moore and how he was so bad. The Jets ruined him. Dude, let me tell you something, okay? That guy has not gotten better at football since the day he left Ole Miss's campus. He's an absolute albatross in the locker room. I'm not going to get into the anti-Semitic Hitler quotes that he posted on Twitter. If we strictly on the football field, the one time the Jets have been good in the last 15 years, they were 5-2 in 2022. Patriots fans will remember it fondly because they broke Zach Wilson in MetLife, and you were there and I was there, and it was horrible. But prior to that, the Jets had a 4-game win streak, had won 5 out of 6. Cooking. They were rolling. Like they were legitimately a fun team. They just had no quarterback, and we saw that unfold. Elijah Moore requested a trade at the end of a 4-game win streak because he didn't get enough targets in a 40-14 blowout win. Garrett Wilson had 4 targets that game. This is year 2 of Elijah Moore and requested a trade. So he played for other teams. He wasn't good there either.
Right.
So save it. I can't believe I had to witness what happened to Elijah Moore stuff. I'm like, guys, we're posting college highlights in year 5 in the league.
Yeah, that's a incredible tell if you do that.
It's always a sign, but no, generally with the receiver thing, like, could they have invested more? Yes, but I don't think there was a fit. Maybe a Jack Besh was a good fit, but was 30 high for him? Probably.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. They needed a corner, and so I wouldn't have taken Maxwell Harrison. But again, like, I just don't think they're wrong for the way they let the board play out.
Yeah, I mean, your point is a good one in terms of their draft capital, but if you look at it, so Coleman's a 2nd-round pick. They just brought in Elijah Moore. Khalil Shakir was a 5th-round pick who now they paid.
They paid him, right? So the draft capital doesn't matter anymore because you paid him.
Yeah, he deserved to be paid. They had Diggs on their roster. They made that big trade to bring him in for a few years, and it certainly
we forget about that. They gave up a 1st-round pick,
right? I mean, and it paid dividends. They were a damn good football team. He helped take them to another level. So, I think where they were on the board, you're right that Burden was probably the only guy that made sense there in terms of like the higher ceiling version of what Luther Burden could be, but he's mostly a slot, and Shakir is a slot. You can't. Yeah, you can't. So the fit didn't make sense. What happens, I think, is it's a big name, and you look at his 2023 tape, you're like, Luther Burden is awesome, and he was awesome in 2023, but he would have where's he playing?
You know who would have been a good fit for the Bills, and round 2 would have been high? Kyle Williams would have been a good fit for the Bills.
Sure.
Field stretcher. He's going to be the guy that's going to take the top off the defense. Josh is going to take shots to him. And we're going to throw jump balls to Keon Coleman in the red zone. Everything else is going to work underneath it, whether Josh and James Cook run game. Like, if you want to go that route, sure, I get it. Like, that's a good fit. But where was the fit? This wasn't Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison. Like, it just wasn't that draft. So it was productive, really good number 2 receivers. And the Bills have like 16 really good number 2 receivers. Right. They don't need that. So you're going to overdraft. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and they're also expecting that Dalton Kincaid is going to be a lot more like he was as a rookie than he was last year. Last year, he had multiple injuries. Guys after the season were like, he shouldn't have been playing. Like, he's a warrior. So there's a lot of respect for him. But I think internally, they thought after a really good, I think he was 70 catches his rookie year, somewhere around there, that he was going to go to that 85, 90 catch place. And it just, from the beginning, with injuries, and then just everybody eats that philosophy. Like, it didn't happen. So I think they're banking on him being better. He's a move tight end. But the point being, they've invested a lot at pass catcher. I have a feeling, though, to your point, that we're going to get to the trade deadline and we're going to hear about them if Coleman doesn't take the next step.
They're linked to every receiver every year. Them and the Cowboys, It's every year. It's like, ooh, who's interested in these guys? Like, just for context, people that have invested the most, Mike, I'll give you a hint. If you could guess the top 7 teams, any of the teams in the top 7 that have invested the most draft capital, again, just for folks that are listening, that means like whatever slot they're drafted in, right? So if you drafted a receiver number 5 overall, that's worth a lot more than drafting 5 receivers in the 7th round. Since 2020, so last 5 drafts.
Cincinnati
is 10th.
Oh, Green Bay.
Green Bay is 3rd. There you go. They're
good about that
narrowly
one.
third. Some of these are going to surprise. Actually, most of these are going to surprise you because they probably.
I'm stunned Cincinnati's not in there because Chase. That would have
Chase and
Chase
Higgins.
would have
That's
been
it though.
included.
They didn't have to do it 9 times.
Right.
Think about teams that pick high all the time.
The Giants have picked high a lot.
Yep, Giants are 6th.
Jets.
Jets are 7th. One team picked their receiver high this year.
I'm already forgetting who the receivers were in this draft.
Carolina's 4th.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, I know if this. Who do you?
Ted.
One and 2 are very valued because of the last 2 years. Number 1 is Jacksonville. They've invested literally a top 2 pick in a receiver. So,
right.
Number 2 is the Chargers, which was extremely surprising to me, only because I feel like we've been talking about them needing a receiver for like a gazillion years. But they're number 2 in terms of draft capital. And then
Quentin Johnson was the first rounder.
Carolina,
early
Denver,
second.
and the Raiders. The least investment in receiver: New Orleans, Atlanta, Dallas, Cleveland, the Rams, and Buffalo. The Patriots, for context, are like 25th or 24th, which makes sense. The Chiefs are actually 25th. Again, the whole point of this is like you don't need to draft a receiver in round 1 to be successful. Look at them. I said the Rams are 5th to last. They've had an first-team All-Pro receiver like multiple times with different guys since that time period. So, again, I think that everyone has a point, but I also think that Buffalo is missing one skill set that they don't have, and that's not necessarily contingent upon a first-round guy. A lot of those speed guys, unless you find a Malik Neighbors, Jamar Chase type that's like a 4-2 guy that, those are rare breeds. Otherwise, it's usually those burners around 3 to 6 where they're like we talked about Arian Smith. He's a burner. That's it. Like, that's what he does. Kyle Williams is a more refined receiver, but Kyle Williams might be a first-round talent, but he's got one really specific skill set that the Patriots desperately need.
Right.
So, yeah, the Bills are missing Stephon Diggs in terms of just that profile. But again, they should have traded him. I'm not saying that. Just that's the profile they're missing. So
yeah, it was time. Prizepicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars in award-winning. Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players and up to 6 for a shot to win up to 2,000. Get that right, 2,000 times your cash. You can also mix sports, and we have baseball season, we have hockey playoffs, we have basketball playoffs. So if you want to cross sports, go right ahead and do that. For instance, think maybe Nikola Jokic will get more than 24 points in a game 7. How about Brunson? Is Brunson going to have to go 30 plus in every game against the Celtics? Cook up hot takes with your friends of real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prizepicks. So just download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, Prizepicks. Run your game. Let's go to a story that it's still getting headlines, even though there has been a judgment. No, we're going to stay away from Bill Belichick. I don't want to talk about Bill Belichick.
Yeah, we just say this. Me and Mike, if this is what you want to come listen to, unfortunately, we're not the show for you.
I've had to do it other places, and I just don't. I don't care.
Cold calling Mike Lombardi to press him on if she's the head recruiter in North Carolina was extremely weird and unprofessional, and it's not surprising given the company. But I feel like the less we focus on this, the more it'll just go away, and we don't have to like everyone that keeps giving this attention. Like, she's just getting more famous. This story is getting more famous. This is good for North Carolina football. Like, as much as people want to say it's not, trust me, it is, because these are eyeballs on their games.
Yeah.
They're going to get crazy ratings, which means boosters are going to give more money. Just stop paying attention to it. It's weird. It's annoying, the whole thing. But, she's having a midlife crisis in his 70s. It is what it is.
She also wants to be an influencer, and we're giving her more influence by continuing to talk about it. And they'll talk about it locally. I mean, I had to talk about it on TV the other night. Like, it's going to be a story for a long time, I think, in New England. let's talk about the fines that the NFL levied on the Atlanta Falcons. $250,000 on the team, $100,000 on defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. For those of you who don't know, it was Jeff's son, Jax, 21 years old, who got the phone number off of his dad's iPad for Shedeur Sanders and placed the prank phone call. I think he purported to be Mickey Loomis, and then said, "Oh, no, we're not drafting. You're going to have to keep waiting," and hung up. And I think the fines were the right thing to do. I could argue that they maybe could even be a little bit higher. Where do you stand on this? And where do you stand on the fact that there were a bunch? So Shedeur Sanders is getting, understandably, because of what happened to him, a lot of conversation here, but there were a slew of prank calls on draft night to players. Tyler Warren, I believe, was one of them. There was Walter Nolan. There was a bunch. Point being, there was a bunch. The league's got to do a much better job of keeping that information private and to a select number of people.
So, yes, I agree. I thought the fine was excessive, to be honest.
Did you?
Yeah, and you know why? Because I think that it's a little bit BS that only I get. The reason they had to do it is because it's an NFL. It came from an NFL employee, right? And they know who it came from. So That's why I think this is a classic. Like, we could yell and rate about the criminal justice system does this and, whatever. It's like, if they catch the person red-handed, like, they're going to get a different punishment, whatever. The whole point being, I just think it's crazy to me that we're only focusing on one guy that happened to when it happened to so many other people, other guys that fell drastically in the draft. Tyler Warren got prank called. He was going 7 to the Jets, which is where he wanted to go, thought he was going, and got prank called, and no one cares. And I'm not telling you have to care, but also, like, happened to Cooper DeJean last year. It was on film, it's recorded, and nobody cared. And I know it's because it's Shedeur, and it's like a big news, and it becomes, a CNN Fox News debate, and it becomes the whole thing. Like, I understand all the logistics behind it, why the NFL had to take some type of pretty harsh stand, in my opinion. Like, finding Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 when he makes $800,000 pre-tax is a lot of money. Like, that's a 25% post-tax of his salary. Like, I'm not trying to boo-hoo him. He's an NFL defensive coordinator. My point being, like, that's not no joke of a fine. And the Falcons got 250, which is, to me, is the meaningless. That's whatever. Mike Florio had a piece, which I can't believe I'm even mentioning Mike Florio, but he mentioned, he's like, the NFL should find, like, they can't find themselves. I mean, I guess they can, but the point being, like, they have to do a better job, because this is not just a one person, one situation scenario. I get why he got fined, but I also feel like at some point we have to kind of take a step back and just not normalize this happening, which is what I don't think is happening. But also, like, either give it no attention, because that's what happens. We just talked about this we joked with the Belichick thing. We are giving so much. You don't think that someone's going to do this next year? They're absolutely going to do it, and they're going to go viral on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram, and it's going to be worth it, and they're not going to be a famous person's kid. So, like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm a little.
Well, they can reduce the odds of that happening by literally giving the phone number to the GM and the GM only.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, like, look,
based on what Florio reported, it was like 2,000 people or so received the email of the guy's numbers. That's like, what do all those people need his number for?
Right. I was gonna say that's one thing. I think there's other ways we could do a better job of, like, kind of gatekeeping these guys' information, because we don't want to open this up to happening. I don't know. Something about it felt like we're, like, doing this huge song and dance for one player, and, like, I guess it's because they don't know who did the other ones. So I guess that maybe they do, or maybe they do know who did it, and they're just not going to tell us because it's not a good news story for a 6th-round tackle to get prank called, right? It's like,
right. Even though that's just
something about it's like
equally as devastating for those guys.
I would say it's more like,
right.
Those guys are like, and I'm not trying to be like this whole, like, be in people's pockets thing, but if I'm a 6th-round tackle and I think I'm going to the 4th, that money is like a huge difference. And even a couple $100,000 to some people might not be a lot, but as somebody that is hoping to have one contract in the league, it's a lot of money. Like, it's just harder for me to feel as bad for Shedeur when I'm just going to say it. People can get mad at me all they want. It was a well-executed prank. It's messed up. They shouldn't have done it. It's so stupid to record yourself doing something. You literally set yourself up to be caught. I mean, that was as dumb as it gets. But like, I bet you if you lie detector tested Shedeur, he probably, looking back, was like pretty well done. Like just whatever. I'm just
Right.
Jeff T had a funny comment, and I agreed. I was like, it was well executed. Cooper DeJean literally laughed it off last year. He was like, okay, prank call. And again, I don't want to normalize it. I just, something about it's irritating me, and I don't know if it's just because we're focusing on one guy or if it's because the principle of it. But like, the NFL makes zero statement on a lot of players that have been getting last offseason got arrested and did these different things, zero statement. And it's like, we've had literally 6 straight days of prank call talk. And it's like, guys,
enough already.
What are we doing?
Yeah. I guess this should lead me to the next thing. And that is Sanders in Cleveland.
Yep.
Joe Flacco under contract. They trade for Kenny Pickett. Obviously, Deshaun's under contract, but no one expects him to ever play there again. So he's off to the side. They draft Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round, who you and I both love. Like, there's a lot to like about Dillon Gabriel. There's one big problem. He's a little dude. And I think you and I both were like, Miami should draft him because he does a lot of the things that Tua does. Left-handed quarterback too, like the whole thing. But they bring in Shedeur in the 5th round. And whether or not you believe them when they said it was just too much value to pass up, or if in fact ownership said you're drafting Shedeur Sanders, and that's why we saw the reaction in the draft room where they were just like, okay, here, like golf clap, nobody smiling, no high fives. But when you look at that room, a 107-year-old Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, who has not proven to be anything in this league, Dillon Gabriel, who's going to get more of an opportunity than Shedeur to start for sure because he's the 3rd round pick. But would you be surprised at any point during the year if Shedeur Sanders is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns?
No, I wouldn't. I think he's going to get every opportunity if he plays well to play. I think that, like, as simple as it gets, if Shedeur goes in there and does a good job of taking care of the football, he's accurate during camp, he runs the offense efficiently, I think the Browns would be happy to have him play. And I think it'd be like, hey, man, if this works out, it'd be fantastic for us that we don't have to go draft some next year. We have multiple 1st rounders. We have a quarterback like on the Brock Purdy deal and the whole thing. Like, I think that'd be a great situation, whether it's Gabriel, Sanders, whoever it is. I don't think that the Browns want Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett to play. I think that they had no choice and we're like, we need to do something here before the draft to not pigeonhole ourselves. But I wouldn't be surprised if Shedeur plays. I also wouldn't be surprised if Dillon Gabriel plays. Like, Joe Flacco, I'm sure will be the 1 going to camp. I'm sure Pickett will be the 2 because they have NFL experience. And they'll go from there. But this kind of comes down to, I hope for Shedeur's sake, he really hops into, like, embraces the 5th round thing and embraces the underdog story, and not they used to tell us every 2 seconds that he's an underdog, but, go out there and play like it. And, hey, prove people wrong and do that whole, like, cause it'd be a really great story of like, hey man, like, I didn't have a good draft process, and be able to look back in 20 years and be like, hey, I should have done this and this. And I didn't, and teams doubted me for it and I made them pay. And like that'd be a great story. So no, I wouldn't be shocked if he plays this year. Part of me thinks Gabriel will have a bigger advantage because I think playbook wise and other things, I think he'll do a really good job of like I joked about the robot thing with Josh McDaniels. I think Kevin Stefanski wants a robot. That's literally going to be Kirk Cousins, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco. Like, Deshaun's not a robot, and he looked horrible in an offense that everyone else looks good in. I would be the most surprised, I think, if Kenny Pickett plays this year of all those guys, because he's not their own. And I don't think there's really any upside to playing him. So, I would say Flacco's probably the camp starter. And then I'm sure the Browns would like to be like, hey, Shedeur, Dillon Gabriel, like, let's have this fan base get excited about a young quarterback. And hey, it's the opposite of what the Browns normally do with the 1st rounder or the big name. Like, we're going to go with the underdog guy, and hopefully we can, make it work.
Yeah, I think when we were leading up to the draft, and it was probably about a month before the draft, and Todd McShay went on his podcast, and he made a very compelling argument for why Shedeur would make a lot of sense for Cleveland, where they were picking. And one of the things he pointed out, as you've just mentioned, Stefanski wants a guy that does what he tells him to do. I want the robot. I want the quarterback that sits there and goes, if you see this, it's here, here. If you see this, it's here, here. Like, don't think. Just read it and do it. That's all I want. That's all I want. Shanahan's the same way in San Francisco. In fact, as I've mentioned this before, there are people close to Garoppolo who felt like he took one of Jimmy's best things, his processing ability, away from him, because he basically was like, no, you throw to this guy. I told you to throw to this guy. You throw to this guy. And so whatever, you can argue that point all day long, whether he would have been anything more than he became. But the point is, Stefanski from that same thought process where just do what I tell you to do. I know better than you do, so just do it. And if Shedeur is willing to fit that mold, which he has the skill set to fit that mold, because he's not
it should be a good fit for him, schematically. Like it just should.
100%. So if he's willing, I could absolutely 100% see an opportunity for him to do it. He's going to have to get over the frustration, though, of training camp when, as the number 4 quarterback, he's probably getting, I think Chase Daniel was breaking this down in his podcast the other day. He's like, let's call it 14 periods over the course of a 2-hour practice. The 4th-string quarterback in training camp is probably getting 8 reps against a real defense. And 8 reps, 4 of which may be handoffs, right? Like we're not just throwing on it every time. So he has
I'll keep harping on this. I don't think Shedeur's challenge is going to be as much on the field. I think it's going to be proving in the classroom every day. I understand protections. I'm not saying he's not a good leader and all that stuff. Like I'm not, people obviously rally around him for better or for worse, but I think it's showing that offensive coaching staff, I can handle different things. I can handle different concepts. I've been in an NFL offense. Like he's got a great opportunity to show
right.
Dude, I was just with an NFL OC and Pat Shurmur in college, and just some of the stigmas around him coming out of those pre-draft meetings of not understanding protections, not doing well on the whiteboard. Can he break some of those? Because if he does, he'll quickly rise up to be like, hey, let's get him more reps because we want to see what we got, to your point. Exactly. I just don't think it's going to be like the simple stuff.
At the end of the day, he was not a 5th-round pick. And that's just the way between all the stuff.
Second or 3rd-round pick that fell due to a lot of other stuff.
Right. And most of it was his doing. I mean, his camp, his doing. Like, you got to take it a little bit more. As someone wrote, he treated it more like he was being recruited versus if it was a job interview. You're being recruited. They tell you how wonderful you are, and this is what we want to do with you. And you go into the arena, and they've got your name and the board and your stats, and they've superimposed your picture in the uniform. This is not that. You're going in there, and you got to show Brian Daboll, Kevin Stefanski, whomever, like, no. You want me. Here's why you want me. The Will Campbell thing, right? Like Will Campbell ended every interview with, draft me. If you don't draft me, you're going to regret it. Now, that might be bold, but like he wanted to put that foot forward. Like, I'm a dog. You want me on your team.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So awesome time of year, as I mentioned, when I was talking about Prizepicks. And now the weather's getting nicer, so you want to be outside. You want to check out a game. Just use Gametime. The app is fantastic. Incredible deals on the best ticket prices across any venue, whether it's a concert, whether it's a game. Do what you want. Upfront fees, so you know exactly what you're paying. It's not one of those things when you get to check out, all of a sudden there's an extra $40 tacked on because of this processing fee and that. Nope. When you click the ticket and this is what you're going to do, that is the price for it. I mentioned it all the time. You can see where you're sitting, which is awesome. Concert, you don't want to be behind there's an outdoor venue here in Massachusetts where there are some poles, and hey, that's a great ticket. And if you don't look at it, you go there and you're like, oh, it's great. I can only see half the band because there's a pole right in front of me. That's not the case. You can find out whether you're doing it or not with the Gametime app. So download the app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. Let's get out on this one, Will. Brock Purdy shows up for OTAs, which is good news because there's been mixed reporting on if they're close to a deal or not, and I would imagine that he at least has to feel somewhat comfortable with the progress that they're making to show up. That's not my question for you. My question for you is, what's he worth? What is, and I'll just give you a quick rundown. Well, I was going to give you a quick rundown if I can find out where the hell there we go. My papers. These are the top 10 paid quarterbacks on an average annual value. So you can mix it up different ways. Like the guaranteed number is the big one, but let's just base it off this list. Dak's making 60, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, 55 a year. Again, average annual value. Jordan Love also 55. Tua 53.1. Goff 53. Justin Herbert 52.5. Lamar Jackson 52. Hurts 51. Kyler Murray 46.1. You know who's tied for 13th on that list is Pat Mahomes at 45. Fear not for Pat. I think he's going to get his money. But
Gino's at what? 40 what?
So it depends on what number you're looking at. I think it's actually north of 40. I mean, south of 40. But
it's 2 for 75.
Yeah.
So 37.5. He's probably a $40 million a year quarterback. People won't like that.
He's not taking 40 million, right?
He's not going to take 40. There's no way I'm giving him more than 50, even though I would still probably hate
45?
that. I would probably hate 50. I'd probably not love 45, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Doesn't he have to be slotted somewhere in the 52 to 55 range? And again, I like him. He's not much of a creator. But if you look at Tua and sort of that, it's just sort of like Goff. It sort of feels like he fits.
Are we going to get a team, Mike? I guess is a bigger question. And I remember, I think I had this question 2 years ago on my pod with Robert Mays. He brought up a good point. He's like, we're going to see that middle market of the NFL is going to start to come back. People are going to start to pay the middle guy because I'd rather have Baker for 30 than pay Purdy 50, right?
Right.
Is Kyle going to say, you're taking 40 or I'm replacing you because I've made everybody else look good? Go down the list. I make the Super Bowl. I know they're going to probably pay him. And it sounds like 50 million or so, maybe a little north, a little south, depending on, what reporter and what article you read. I just am curious who's going to take the stand first because nobody's doing it. And a lot of these teams, I like Jared Goff. I don't know if I would have paid Jared Goff 53 a year because it seems like you could replicate this, formula of good, accurate quarterback that's generally mistake-free, although Goff obviously has had his times where he's made mistakes. And the team around him is so good. Like, there was always, Bucky Brooks had this too of years ago with Lamar. And again, the Eagles did this with Wentz and Hurts. Obviously, the Ravens are good. They did not do this with Lamar. But the concept of infrastructure is great. Everything around him is awesome. Receivers, O-line, defense, coaching staff. If we just roll out a cheaper quarterback every 4 years or 5 years, including tags, whatever, will we be better off? And I'm curious to see what the Niners do because I could argue they're better off saying we'll trade you for 2 ones to a desperate team who's going to pay you because the quarterbacks are desperate, and we'll take Kirk Cousins for the year, and I'll win 10 games. And I'll reset it again next year, and I'll go trade up for I don't know. It's a bigger conversation. I know it's not really answering the question, but it's going to happen at one point, and I just wonder if Purdy's the guy it happens with based on status and everything else around him.
If you were going to tell me, Giardi, who's the coach and what's the organization that would take that stand, it would be San Francisco because of Kyle's arrogance with the quarterback. I don't really any other or whatever. It's cockiness, confidence. To me, it's a little arrogant, but whatever. Like that, he feels like he can do this.
Arrogant.
He took Brock Purdy, right, as the Mr. Irrelevant, and turned him into this quarterback that he went to an NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl with in back-to-back years. And yet, he was an important piece, but he wasn't the piece. And so, I would have thought that this offseason, instead of just signing Mac Jones for 2 years and $7.5 million, which, look, I know that there was that whole thing before Mac's draft and does he want it or does he not? Like that whole thing, like maybe he looks at Mac and says, I can get the same thing from Mac. But I would have thought that this would have been the draft. Hey, you know what, Brock, we're not paying you 50. If you want to take 42 for the next 3 years, we'll make it a nice guaranteed number. Like, awesome, and we can continue to build this team around you or rebuild it around you now after we've moved some pieces. Or screw you, I'm taking quarterback X in the 3rd round or 4th round, and I'm pairing him with Mac, and I'm sending you to parts unknown And yeah, and I'll bring in Kirk Cousins too. We'll just throw 3 pieces at it. You know, you're not going to pay. Cousins is going to get paid from Atlanta. Let's just put that out there. So it's like you're not paying a ton for the position, and I'll show you what a genius I am again, because with these assets, we'll be right back in the mix again. With some of the players that were hurt last year, we'll be right back in the mix again, and you'll be saying, "Hey, maybe there is another path. Maybe you don't have to pay these guys that are good but not great, or mid and get good contracts. The good get the great contracts. Like maybe that's."
Let me do a hypothetical. I know we're going to finish up here, but let me do a hypothetical.
I feel like they're doing it.
Let's say I offered you, you're Joe Shane, and let's just say this is 8 days ago. So Thursday morning, the draft. I offered you Brock Purdy and my second rounder for 3 overall, 35 overall, and next year's 1. You get your quarterback, right? If you're the Giants, and you keep a second rounder so you can go address, whatever you please. And if you're the Niners, you sit there and you go, I'll take Abdul Carter to pair him with Nick Bosa, and I'll take number 11 overall. I'll take Michael, whatever. Just pencil the guy in, and in the second round, I'll take Tyler Shough, who's 26, and we know his ceiling, but he's got a high floor. He's right there. Kyle, what classic Kyle guy who's played a ton of football and he doesn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't both teams probably have been happier in some way? And if it's like Tyler Shough, Cousins, and Mac Jones as your quarterbacks, and we end up with a sick defensive line again, our roster feels young and new, and the Giants are sitting there going, hey, dude, like Brock Purdy with Malik Neighbors and this defense, we should probably be pretty good, and now the fan base can rally around. I don't know. I just feel like there was a better outcome than what we're going to end up with having.
I would have definitely said yes if I was Joe Shane to that. A little reluctance in the second one, but like that's the cost of doing business for a quarterback. I mean, I would try to talk you into a 2 instead of a 2026 2 instead of a 2026 1. But if that was the take it or leave it, I'd have said, you know what? I'm going to take it. I'd take that over Jackson Dart. Like I have massive questions.
Saying, I feel like there was a different outcome here that could have been like more fun for both teams.
And Purdy would raise your floor to the point where I don't know if you're a playoff team, probably not. But are you in the mix in December? And being in the mix in December, is that enough to save your job if you're Joe Shane and Brian Daboll? My guess is yes, even though the playoff is the edict. But I think someone's going to get tomorrow and be like, look, man, what you're asking is a little crazy. But if it's, hey, we've shown signs of improvement, we've got the program back on the right direction, and we have the quarterback, yeah, why not? Why not?
That's just
so I like it. It was a very good thought. And that's how we're going to end the pod. We thank you for listening as always. Like, rate, review, subscribe, do all those things. The Patriots Press Pass on CLNS, you want to definitely get involved with that. Subscribe to that as well. He is Will Pa on PA on X. I am Mike Giardi on X. You can follow us along there as well. We appreciate you listening as always, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend. I'm fired up for it. Let's go.